We'll kind of summarize the issue. We stopped last time with man is its key to unlock a conscious door. It's a key that inconscient, it has come out of the inconscient, not that inconscient has created it, but out of the deep hid possibilities in the inconscient, this key has emerged through the constant working and pressure of the divine forces, of the forces of life, of the forces of mind, and from behind always the divine force, which has created, as it were, out of this dark void, this possibility called man. And now the divine sees a still deeper possibility in him. So we had a very beautiful message yesterday. And it's very interesting that how many kinds of reactions human consciousness can have to this message. On one side, there is a response of light, hope, trust, adhesion, full of enthusiasm that this possibility is worth putting everything into it. On the other side, there is the response of night. How can it be? Surely, maybe they are mistaken. Maybe this is not the time, this is just a hope given to man. Like so many times, hope has been given. Doubt, denial, etc., etc. So these, one is reminded of a image when Rama walks into the court of King Janak. There are different responses. Some respond with doubt. Can he really lift the bow? Is it really possible? Some respond with fear. Oh, this is the end of all that I cherish and dream. Some respond with hope and trust. And some with a deeper vision. They bow down to the divine incarnate. We are in the midst of a similar situation, and as we just heard the mother's beautiful words, Aurobindo's words, in her own, with her own power and force added to it, that this is a transitional time which is not at all a smooth transition. We straight away want to see the new race, but we can go back million of years back when the first human was created. The first thing that changed from the ape to the human, it's amazing. We can't imagine what was the first thing that happened. It was not writing poetry, it was not communicating, it was not software. In fact, the first type of humanity did not speak. It still took out the same sounds which apes and chimps took out, because its larynx and vocal cord was still up. It's only the next strata of humanity that they began to take out not just sounds but words. The first kind of humanity did not speak. All that it did was to stand up. That's all. All that Aurobindo wants of us is to stand up and be counted. Yes, sir. Please include us in your list. And if there is the aspiration, it means an inclusion, because we cannot aspire unless the divine grace has sanctioned it. The second thing that man did when he changed from the chimpanzee was one small thing changed, which changed the entire history of human evolution. And that little change was simply the thumb changed its position. Such a small thing. And all that we see today in the world of technology emerged from that one change. Only the great force of nature could think that this is what is needed. It did not start man straight away sit and write poetry. And as human beings evolved, they faced a great difficulty and danger. This background is interesting and important because we face a similar situation. In its passage, the first danger that human beings faced was the danger of childbirth. The moment they stood erect, Human beings could not have wide and broad and strong hips as in the animals. So childbirth, which was so easy in animals, became very difficult for human beings. And with a full formed brain, a developed brain, how could human beings come out of a narrow passage? So nature had a very unique method of solving this problem. So babies came out unformed. Every child actually is a premature birth because the brain is not yet developed fully, unlike animals. Human beings' brain will develop for the next 2 years. And the skull bones, they are not united. So there is a scope for the brain to expand, and these bones get united at the end of 2 years. And lo, nature solved the problem in a very different way, the way we human beings could not even imagine. We are faced with a very similar situation, and we just wonder how could this human being ever there could be a possibility of creating a divine life here. So the issue is, number one, we find ourselves in the midst of a situation. As human beings, we have become acutely aware of our gross limitations and of our deeper possibilities, both things. This is a difficult situation. On the one side, we know that there are very deep possibilities in us. On the other side, we can't predict even what's going to happen next moment. So we are in that kind of a situation. So we have become as if torn between the voice of death and the voice of divine grace. This is the situation in which we live in. So we have, so far, as human beings, we had two possibilities. The issue was the issue of human life. And human life had two possibilities. One, to live within the frame of the human law and to make the most of it, the best of it, not to think of anything higher, deeper. If there is anything higher or deeper, it's probably an imagination of some people whose glands secrete aberrant secretions. This is how it was told. Even now some scientists would say that all this is an aberration of the mind. And Aurobindo has foreseen it. And every time such thoughts occur to us, we should remember what death speaks to Savitri. So we'll read some of these passages. Now, this is where we find Savitri is so deeply practical a book. It is not at all philosophy, though the deepest philosophy can emerge out of it. Everything that death speaks is something that at some point of time we can feel as a whisper within our mind or our heart. And everything that Savitri says is also felt within us as a whisper or as a thought coming from a realm beyond. So, something which death says to us about this possibility. (609) somewhere a little below the middle, earth only is there and not some heavenly source. So sometimes the mind, 609, book 10, canto 2. This is the gospel of death. There are two gospels, the gospel of God and the gospel of the force of darkness, the inconscience. And how it speaks to us. It is not death speaking to Savitri alone, because this is a drama of our own soul. Savitri is very relevant and it will always be contemporary as long as human beings are there. So it is our own drama. When we hear within ourselves this little voice telling us, oh, all this talk about higher consciousness and deeper soul, all this, has any scientist ever talked about it? As if science is the leader and forerunner of all truth. So, death says Earth only is, earth only is there, and not some heavenly source. If heavens there are, they are veiled in their own light. If a truth eternal somewhere reigns unknown, it burns in a tremendous void of God. Sometimes saints also speak like this. And it's strange who speaks through their tongue. It burns in a tremendous void of God, for truth shines far from the falsehoods of the world. How can the heavens come down to unhappy earth, or the eternal lodge in drifting time? How shall the ideal tread earth's dolorous soil, where life is only a labor and a hope, a child of matter and by matter fed? So we are told by very convincing voices that man is nothing but a product of matter, and soul is nothing but a secretion of the pineal gland, and all these experiences are nothing but the hallucination of the brain because of certain chemical problems. So it is a chemistry which needs to be corrected, and not dream about divine consciousness and all this coming. So death has many more agents than, a child of matter and by matter fed. So this is the proof. Even gods, when they come down, so-called gods, look, they eat normal food. And that's why the first thing we want, if somebody is a god, he should not be eating food, he should not be sleeping, he should not fall ill, he should be doing all those things which we as human beings don't do. So, death is pointing out, a fire flaming low in nature's great, a wave that breaks upon a shore in time, a journey's toilsome trudge with death for goal. The avatars have lived and died in vain. This thought comes to many people. And we should be very cautious when this thought comes. Who is whispering to us from the dangerous deeps that avatars have come and gone? What has changed? We fail to see so much that has changed, and we fail to see the stamp that they have always left as an imprint upon the race. We need not go into the details of the work and action of the avatar, but every avatar has come and left a strong stamp in the memory of the race, and many have risen because of their touch to a greater life. That the mass of humanity has not changed, it's a different matter. That's what Aurobindo is trying to solve. But each one has left his imprint, and based on that imprint, there have been earthlings who have risen to a greater life. But death would show us only the outer part. The avatars have lived and died in vain. Vain was the sage's thought, the prophet's voice. In vain is seen the shining upward way. Earth lies unchanged beneath the circling sun. Look, man is still the same. He needs to eat. He needs to drink water. He falls sick. He ends with death. So what has changed? She loves her fall and no omnipotence her mortal imperfections can erase. Force on man's crooked ignorance, heaven's straight line, or colonize a world of death with gods. We give up hope very soon. It's so strange that Aurobindo and the mother, living in the highest of heights, did not give up on man. And a greater paradox is that we, for whom they open the doors of hope, give up hope upon ourselves so quickly. If once we get angry again, we say, oh my God, can I really? Am I really a candidate for divinity? Is it really possible? Whereas they never gave up hope, even though they could at will go up and down the ladder, as they would say, and yet we give up hope. And then it would tell us, we can turn one page behind, go to page 608, because there is something very interesting here. This too we hear. thy mortal longing made for thee a soul. So the voice of death tells us sometimes, especially when we read a good article, well written article from a great neurosurgeon who knows nothing beyond his knife and the brain he operates, yet believes he can comment on God and soul and spiritual things, like Sunil Gavaskar commenting on religion, and yet we accept him. He is just a neurosurgeon. He doesn't know anything beyond the brain. But we believe that he has the right to talk about anything and everything. And he would tell us, thy mortal longing made for thee a soul. There is nothing like soul. I have dissected the brain into bits and pieces. Where is the soul? There is no soul. And we say, yes, he must be right. Maybe Aurobindo doesn't know. So this is human, as Aurobindo quotes Einstein. Einstein has said, I believe, that there are two things which are infinite. One is the universe, the second is human stupidity. And then Einstein is reported to have remarked, but of the former, I am not sure. Maybe the universe is finite. But of the latter, divine is coming and giving us assurance, look, this is going to happen. This is the voice of the inconscience. This is the resistance of the inconscience. And why it is there? Because for millenniums and millions of years, this is how we leave behind the shadow, and it makes the inconscience heavy and heavy and heavy. And each avatar comes, and to open the way up, he has to first cleanse a little bit of the inconscience, to unburden the past forms which have gone in. All the things we have left behind, the struggle, the pain, the anguish, the sorrow, the disability, the pessimism, and even the hopes, unfulfilled dreams. All that is left into the inconscience as a shadow. And death would show all of them to Savitri. He would say, you are talking of world? Yes, look, this fellow dreamed of a new world, and here he comes in my symbol realm. Look, you speak of prophet voices, here is this prophet in my world. He would show all kinds of those beings, and this inconscience speaks in us. That's what in human beings, inconscience has become semi-conscious. So it begins to seek and it begins to speak in this way. So it assumes the form of death, which pulls down everything. It is the eater of the shadow, because as we move up, it eats the shadow. Savitri describes him later as, O thou who eats the cold remnants of the sun. When the sun grows cold, death eats it and swallows it. So that's what it is full of. So it is full of all these doubts and negations. This angel in thy body thou callest love, who shapes his wings from thy emotions' hues, in a ferment of thy body has been born, and with the body that housed it, it must die. So love is only a human prop, and that's why it's very interesting that in the issue, Aurobindo is not talking of a mystic spiritual love. He is talking of, in fact, in his own words, conjugal love, conquering death. It's a very strange thing, because conjugal love, as far as we know, is something which is, it has nothing to do with anything divine. But precisely in those very bonds, which are considered to be the fetters, she says, yes, divine love can be established even in those bonds. And she would later on describe that the soul is always eternally free. It chooses these bonds. And what kind of a freedom is this, which cannot kiss the lover's bonds? That's how she will describe the perfect freedom, is the freedom to even assume a bond and yet play with it consciously. So that is the kind of freedom it will describe. So these are the voices of death, and it will speak further. Page 615. 615. Vain is thy longing to build heaven on earth. In fact, it starts with a bright hallucination are thy thoughts. That's how people tell, oh, all these people are all crazy people. They have no touch with reality. And they are not practical at all. They don't tell it always because it's improper to speak. But something within is like that. A bright hallucination are thy thoughts. And after a few lines below, vain is thy longing to build heaven on earth, artificer of ideal and idea, mind, child of matter in the womb of life, to higher levels persuades his parent steps. Mind is the child of matter. It's very interesting that in the evolutionary hierarchy there is a reversal, and that is the cause of great confusion. Mind is the firstborn on earth, and from the involutionary point of view, the last. So matter is the firstborn on earth, and from the involutionary point of view, the last. So, because on earth it is the first one, and next comes life. So matter binds life and believes it has a right over it. Matter has existed for million years before life came. So when life comes first, it is as if immediately bound by matter, and it has to struggle to free itself. In fact, if we see the evolutionary journey of life, how it must have wriggled out of the first cell and learned to crawl and climb and fly. What a tremendous effort. And in the life divine, Aurobindo would tell us, nature has already accomplished this great miracle, that how he has harmonized two apparently opposite things, matter which is dull and inert, and life which is ever active, restless, kinetic, dynamic. Two absolute opposites have been united. Now in life, mind is born in life and matter. So mind to begin with becomes so dependent on life and matter. And that is why the brain must expand, the instrument must become ready. And once it is ready, then mind takes its leaps and bounds. From its first primitive start, where mind can think only of its immediate physical world, it begins to dream, as Death would say, of blue heavens. It would write beautiful poetries. It would have visions of gods on its peak tops. Again, because spirit is born, or the spiritual consciousness is born, in mind which is bound by matter and life. As today, the new consciousness is born, as mother would say, born. She would make sure that we have heard it right. And she has used the word is. No playing with words. New consciousness will be. She has said the new consciousness is born. And then she knows that how the mind will play with it. So she says, it is not a new conception. It is not the conception of a new life, but an entirely new consciousness. But what happens when it is born? Immediately it becomes, to begin with, a prisoner of the mind, a prisoner of matter, and a prisoner of the life force. And Mother beautifully describes in that experience that how the inconscience swallows it and it goes into its depths, and then it re-emerges, and as it resurfaces, it begins to mold the mind. First it is a prisoner of mind, so the mind raises all kinds of doubts. Oh, new consciousness is born. If we see the letters which people wrote that time and asked the mother and Aurobindo, I don't see anything anywhere. But there is slowly the emergence, and the first thing it does, it begins to modify the mind so that the mind becomes more and more ready to receive the light. That's why we see today the mind and the imagination of the race are beginning to accept that there is the possibility of a new creation. And if we don't believe what the Lord is saying, then we have to see Steven Spielberg movies, and we'll see how the mind and imagination of the race are beginning to receive that thing, that it's possible. Next, the life of the race, the life impulse, the heart, it's automatically growing wider and wider. And then of course the very body. So this is the process. But death is deliberately concealing this fact. So it is telling us, mind, child of matter in the womb of life, to higher levels persuades his parents' steps. Inapt, they follow ill the daring guide, like child, teaching parents. And nowadays it's very common because children are coming with a new consciousness. They are instinctively, they believe that they know better. And who knows, probably they do know better. And they come and teach us, and we don't like. But we represent the old consciousness, mentalized consciousness, which has its own background experience. And when they talk of wider things, their whole consciousness is very different. Of course, it's not that they have arrived at some greater truth, but it is trying to lead. Come with me. But we would not listen. So, mind, a glorious traveler in the sky, walks lamely on the earth with footsteps slow. So we would tell, look, you are talking of all this, look what has happened. You had a very nice career in front of you, and you lost it just because all these crazy ideas were coming into your head. So parents will say, you are very impractical, listen to our experience. We are telling you, this is the way to live. So it is happening in everyday life, the new consciousness and the old. And perhaps that's why the mother gave this prayer to the students, to be a hero warrior who fights against the past that seeks to endure, and for the future that is emerging. His thoughts look straight into the very heavens. They draw their gold from a celestial mine. His acts work painfully a common ore. All thy high dreams were made by matter's mind. To solace its dull work in matter's jail, its only house where it alone seems true. So we are told, have you ever seen a disembodied mind? They talk about mental consciousness, but only brain. Mind is same as brain. Ever seen a mind without the brain? But these are thoughts of ignorance, the thoughts of death. A few lines below, matter on the firm earth sits strong and sure. It is the firstborn of created things. It stands the last when mind and life are slain. So we see, firstborn is matter even out of the womb of life. It is the embryo which is created, which is non-living. And at the end, when mind and life depart, matter lies helpless. So death is giving us this logic. And if it ended, all would cease to be. All else is only its outcome or its phase. Thy soul is a brief flower by the gardener mind. And then a few pages later it says on page 619, we are only reading what death is saying. Savitri has very beautiful answer, but her answer, best answer, comes at the end. Thy mind and life are tricks of matter's force. If thy mind seems to thee a radiant sun, if thy life runs a swift and glorious stream, this is the illusion of thy mortal heart. And then it comes with the real stunner. On page 635, it gives a long discourse. The discourse death gives sitting on the platform, and human beings listen. And what does it say at the end in its gospel? How shall thy will make one the true and false? This world is false and unreal. It is speaking exactly the language of the illusionistic Mayavad. Death is speaking this language. This is false and that is real. Even if I were to concede it, how will you make the real and false one and true? Where matter is all, their spirit is a dream. So this is a choice we have to make when we think of material world. everything appears, there is a stance we can take where everything appears nothing but material. So where is place for spirituality in it? If all are the spirit, matter is a lie. So it is a very difficult situation for Savitri. If all are the spirit, matter is a lie. And who was the liar who forced the universe? This lie who has forced? Actually, we can see why it is so difficult to accept the solution Sri Aurobindo gives to the problem of man. It's easy to take one of the two positions, that we are matter born, bound to matter forever. We have to live by the law of death, under the shadows of death, and constantly besieged and surrounded by death. It is easy to believe that. It is also easy, a little more difficult, but relatively easy to believe that all is spirit. And all this is, after all, a fabricated thing. And we should just jump into that and annul thyself. It's easy to have faith in that. But what solution that Mother and Sri Aurobindo are giving us is neither of the two, but something which both find difficult to accept. To make the false changed into its true shape. And that indeed is the ancient Vedic aspiration, that which makes the crooked straight. This crooked life on earth is a disfigured life, a disfigurement of something which is divine. So that is the basis, that this life in its origin is divine, and therefore it can become divine. So the whole thing comes from there. But here death will tell us, he who would turn to God must leave the world. Even when we come to Sri Aurobindo and the Mother, this haunts us like a nightmare of the past. And we feel great pride in believing that we have renounced the world. And so, world haunts us because we are not allowed to do this. So world comes to us in 1,000 ways. It knocks at our doorsteps in one way or the other. It says, here I am, sir, can I be admitted? No, I have left the world. So he says, oh, you have left the world. Believing it is a lie. I will show you that God is hid inside the world. So it knocks at our doors from every corner. And here death tells, he who would turn to God must leave the world. And sometimes this can be very dangerous. Mother says it can bring a dangerous kind of egoism, that I have renounced the world. And she says this can turn into such a formidable spiritual ego, which of course in old times the sannyasis could suffer. And she says that it has to be broken to bits and pieces. Otherwise, such a person will never see the divine. She has used very hard words. Never see the divine. Because it's an ego that I have renounced the world. And Sri Aurobindo would tell us in one of his aphorisms, how could I renounce that which my lover has accepted? He has accepted the burden of the world. How could I renounce that? What he is telling us to change the relation with the world. And that's why for a while we have to isolate ourselves from the entire distortions and perversions of the world and be in a sheltered and protected field where we can recreate a new relationship with the world. That is what they are trying to create for us. He who would live in the spirit must give up life. He who has met the self renounces self. So it's very difficult to believe that somebody who is an aspirant for integral yoga can eat samosas. When Dilip Kumar Roy came to ashram, one of the things, he saw that people were having samosas and rasgullas. So he said, this is okay. I can follow this path. If you are allowed to eat rasgullas, it is okay with me. It's not that one should or should not eat rasgullas or samosa. That's not the point. The whole point is, it's not about leaving the rasgullas and samosas either. It's neither this or that, but something else that Sri Aurobindo is telling us, and that is to recreate our relation with the world which has gone wrong. Death has told us all is simply matter. Live by matter, live for matter, die for matter. On the other side, we hear voices from the spirit stops. All this is a lie. Come back to your source and leave this. He would tell us, no, either of them. One blinds us by the darkness, and second blinds us by the light. That's why in the Ish Upanishad it is said, Andham tama pravishanti ye avidyam upasate. They who follow after avidya and this world of multiplicity, they fall into a great darkness. They who only after the knowledge fall as if into a greater darkness. Again it tells us, because people may think it's a printing error. So it would again tell us, they who follow after only after birth fall into a great darkness. They who only after non-birth, it's a great movement sometimes in Indian spirituality and other spiritual movements also, that this world don't come back, cut the cycle of birth and rebirth. They who follow only after rebirth, after non-birth, as if into a greater darkness. It makes sure that we understand it correctly. Birth is meant for a great purpose, and that's what Aurobindo is telling us. So these are the voices we hear, and at the end, page 645, mind is the author, spectator, actor, stage. Last 5 lines. Mind only is, and what it thinks is seen. If mind is all, renounce the hope of bliss. But at least death has begun to admit the possibility. So it's uses the word if. If mind is all, renounce the hope of truth. For mind can never touch the body of truth, and mind can never see the soul of God. Only his shadow it grasps, nor hears his laugh, as it turns from him to the vain seeming of things. So death speaks to us and tells us, have you heard the voice of God? Have you ever seen God? Have you ever felt God? Why do you believe in God? But something from our depths replies, yes, indeed, all is God. So that little voice we have to keep up and follow its trail. So this is the one issue, and there is another kind of possibility for man, and that is of plunging oneself into that absolute and be annulled. Now this is the second possibility which is given. We see in page 691. Page 690, last line, and then we continue. Oh, too compassionate and eager dawn. This is the Divine Mother's compassion. Her compassion was not manifested in having relief huts for flood victims or famine victims. She is finding the permanent solution. Oh, too compassionate and eager dawn, leave to the circling aeon's tardy pace and to the working of the inconscient will. There is a will which is lying buried in the inconscient. Over a period of time it will express itself. Now it is death transfigured speaking to her. Leave to its imperfect light the earthly race. All shall be done by the long act of time. Although the race is bound by its own kind, the soul in man is greater than his fate. So it says, I have put something in him which will go through all this. You don't worry. You have achieved something, fair enough. But don't talk for the race. In process of time, they will come. You are worried that they suffer and struggle. Don't worry. They have a soul and it will endure another 10,000 years. Just as it has endured 1,000,000 years, it will endure another 1,000,000 years and eventually come out. So a few lines below it says, O flame, Withdraw into thy luminous self, or else return to thy original might on a seer summit above thought and world. Partner of my unhourred eternity, be one with the infinity of my power, for thou art the world mother and the bride. So the second option is that you live forever in a kind of togetherness with the divine in his status of consciousness. Not yet merged completely, but living forever with the divine in his status of consciousness, and from there watching the works of time. A few lines below. Lift up the fallen heart of love which flutters, cast down desire's abyss into the gulfs, forever rescued out of nature's shapes. Discover what the aimless cycles want. There intertwined with all thy life has meant, here vainly sought in a terrestrial form, break into eternity thy mortal mold. So break this mold and be free and plunge yourself into that eternity. This is the kind of thing offered to it. Cast off thy body as a useless robe. This is how some saints would tell us. I have cast my body as a useless robe and feel very good about it. But why did you assume the robe in the first place? That is an unanswered question. The issue of life. Melt, lightning, into thy invisible flame. Clasp, ocean, deep into thyself, thy wave. This is the simile described, that human soul is like a wave thrown out of the great ocean of God's being, and this is the becoming. It should go back and finish itself. The drop merging into the ocean is the culmination of spiritual life. Happy forever in the embosoming surge, grow one with the still passion of the depths, then shalt thou know the lover and the loved. They'll become one. Leaving the limits dividing him and thee, receive him into boundless Savitri, lose thyself into infinite Satyavan. So, Savitri answers to him, in vain thou temptest with solitary bliss. Two spirits saved out of a suffering world. So this option of individual soul rescued out of the snare of time and merging into the timeless has already been given as an option to man. What Sri Aurobindo wants is more and more souls who are free, and yet they take upon themselves the burden of time and nature, so that this nature can become over a period of time worthy of the divine inhabitant. So it's a conscious participation in the conscious Leela of the Supreme, which is going on right from the time itself began. So, my soul and his indissolubly linked. Satyavan is the human soul caught in the net of death, and Savitri, the word incarnate, the grace of the Divine Mother. And look what she's saying. My soul and his is indissolubly linked. It is we who have the sense of separation, but the Divine Mother has never separated herself from this creation. She has tied herself to every soul. In fact, she says, all souls that aspire to the divine are directly under my charge. In any case, indirectly they are under her charge, but through her delegate powers. But those who aspire are directly under my charge. In the one task for which our lives were born, such a beautiful feeling that we are not alone in this world. And the Divine Mother is all the time with us in this wrestle with error and fate. To raise the world to God in deathless light, to bring God down to the world on earth we came, to change the earthly life to life divine. I keep my will to save the world and man. Even the charm of thy alluring voice, O blissful Godhead, cannot seize and snare. So first the divine hides behind the mask of death and pursues us through terror and pain. But actually, these are what? These are spirit's goads and the soul's opportunity. Through all this, he keeps pushing us. As Sri Aurobindo would use a beautiful phrase, death is a tunnel dug in emergency. It is like he pushes us on the one road. The road towards perfection, the road towards self-excelling. If there was no death, we would be so content that we would not even move a step beyond. So that's where death serves this role. It pushes us. And after we have escaped its snare and we have discovered that behind the mask of death, who is standing? But there is the smile of the divine beloved. Then he gives another snare. Oh, you have discovered me? Come, so beautiful, merge into me. Be happy with your solitary bliss in me. Don't forget about, forget about this ignorant world. Forget about the laboring humanity. Don't think about them. Just isolate yourself and adore me and be loved by me and be full of delight by me. Forget about anything else. So this is the second kind of allurement that he does. Even the charm of thy alluring voice, O blissful Godhead, cannot seize and snare. I sacrifice not earth to happier worlds. I don't sacrifice this world because thou dwellest in it, not because I am bound by it, because thou dwellest in it, because thou art working in it. Therefore, and when she says that, on page 693, this is what she asks. Since God has made earth, earth must make in her God. What is simple, straight and direct logic? Same page, 693. It's such a simple and direct logic. Many of these words are so direct. Such a simple truth Sri Aurobindo is revealing to us. Something which we miss. And we go through all kinds of debate and discussion and quote this or that scripture. And yet we say, yes, God made this world. But look at the direct logic and the force in the directness of these words. Since God has made earth, earth must make in her God. So beautiful. What hides within her breast she must reveal. I claim thee for the world that thou hast made. Only a great divine grace, someone who has felt deeply the struggling heart of humanity, can ask this from God. That you have made this world, and now you are very nicely hiding yourself above blue heavens and telling us, come up, come up. What is this? You have made this world, I claim you for this world. This is a love for man. That's why Sri Aurobindo uses the word in his poem, the master of man and his infinite lover. What a profound love this is for humanity, for earth, and of course for the divine. Thou hast made this world, I claim thee for the world that thou hast made. If man lives bound by his humanity, if he is tied forever to his pain, let a greater being then arise from man. So man becomes the link, the mediating stair for the consciousness to go beyond man. The superhuman with the eternal mate, and the immortal shine through earthly forms. So this is the boon she is asking, that let this consciousness which is imprisoned in man, which is struggling either to belong to earth or to belong to heaven, must find its true reconciliation. And the reconciliation is the earthly life becoming the life divine. So, this is what she is asking. And of course, again, once more it says that look what you are going to do. Do you know the consequences? On the same page, a few lines below, the God is answering to the woman's heart. And this is the marvel, that at that point where Savitri stands, the incarnate force of the divine, yet she carries in herself the woman's heart. And this unfolds another secret of the twin avatar. We have had avatars in the past. All over the world we have had avatars. But always we find that the masculine aspect walks in the front and the feminine trails behind. Radha must stay in Vrindavan and Krishna must move into the world. Sita must stay as a helpless woman, bound, earth nature, bound by the Rakshasa and the Asura, to be rescued by Rama. Buddha must leave behind his mate and companion and walk alone into the jungle. And so must Christ, who's brought out of the womb of Virgin Mary. It's something so beautiful. She who shapes the very body of the avatar incarnate, yet she must step behind, and it is Christ who must be worshipped. But here, what Aurobindo does, because it is a new creation, and only the feminine, the eternal feminine, the power and consciousness of the divine, she only can do that. She only can have a heart of fire and a flame of love. So she must be put in the forefront. And therefore, for the first time we have in the history of avatars, the masculine element stepping behind and telling her, thou must create for them the new and future world. So here, but the God answered to the woman's heart, and we will see this again on the next page, with which we will end. Maybe 10 minutes we'll just should be on. It says, the Godhead of the vision, wonderful. A few lines below. In thy passion to deliver man and earth, indignant at the impediments of time, and the slow evolution's sluggard steps, lead not the spirit in an ignorant world. It's once again, last time cautioning it, that look, I am telling you, don't ask for this boon. You don't know what dangerous light, what powerful force you are bringing down. Aurobindo gives this analogy in one of his early writings. And he says, if an ordinary mortal were to lift the mace of Bhima, what would happen? It would fall on his own head and he would lie crushed. So when the new consciousness comes, it brings with it tremendous power, tremendous light. And if we are not ready in our bodies and minds, we could well have evolutionary fallouts, breakdowns on the way. Yet these risks are worth the goal. So he's telling her, lead not the spirit in an ignorant world. Ashupati has already been cautioned this earlier, which maybe next time we'll read about. Same page, page 693, last 5-6 lines. Lead not the spirit in an ignorant world to dare too soon the adventure of the light. Is man really ready? Is still clinging to his falsehood? What will happen when truth comes? He will begin to see falsehood everywhere, because that is the action of truth into the depths. It will bring out all his deep-seated resistances, and he will feel stifled by the smoke. When the churning is going on for the great ocean, the gods and the asuras come together to bring the nectar of immortality. And all the CNN, BBC and everybody has gathered that immortality is going to come out. So all cameras are fixed. People will ask, where is the new being? Where is the new being? So those days they are looking for some vessel will come in which the nectar of immortality will be there. So all the news channels have gathered. Nectar of immortality is going to come out. So everybody has gathered on the shores of the great ocean to watch that nectar come out. And beautiful things are coming out. Dhanvantri comes out, Lakshmi comes out, Kaustubh comes out, Airavat comes out, all the beautiful things. Oh, now immortality nectar will come out. And news have spread, rumors have spread. Look, it will come out in a golden vase. It will be studded with jewels which are only found in the depths of the ocean. And all the cameras are fixed. And what comes out? The darkest poison from the billows of night. Kalkut. And the gods and the demons run helter-skelter. And all the cameramen leave their cameras and run away. This place was supposed to bring out the nectar of immortality, but we see only a dark smoke. A smoke that threatens the whole world. What is this? What is this? And on the horizon appears Shiva, who absorbs into his being the poison and releases the nectar for man. So Sri Aurobindo becomes the Shiva to drink the poison that came out of the great churning and releases the nectar of immortality for man. But first, this is already warned. She is forewarned. Don't do this. In fact, the mother asked once Sri Aurobindo, do you think humanity is ready? Sri Aurobindo says, if we wait for humanity to be ready, it will never be ready. We have to make earth and humanity ready. And we all know it is being made ready through everything. So it says, lead not the spirit in an ignorant world to dare too soon the adventure of the light, pushing the bound and slumbering God in man. Awaken mid the ineffable silences into endless vistas of the unknown and unseen. Across the last confines of the limiting mind and the superconscient, perilous borderline into the danger of the infinite. So it is a dangerous work. Sri Aurobindo is telling us, yoga has its own dangers. It's not all sweet and nice. It's not all rose petal things. At one place he says, what rose petal, lotus eating sadhakas you all are, who cannot stand even little difficulty and trouble. It is a dangerous thing. But still it says, but if thou wilt not wait for time and God, do then thy work and force thy will on fate. As I have taken from thee my load of night, and taken from thee my twilight's doubts and dreams, so now I take my light of utter day. So Savitri ascends onto the highest level, where the destiny is made, and she chooses for man and earth this great boon. We will end with these 4 boons of Savitri. She is asked 4 times. And the beauty of these boons is that we'll once again find a beautiful reconciliation between earth and heaven. When Savitri faces death, Sri Aurobindo describes her as the incarnate force thrust aside its veil. So she stands as the mighty mother of the worlds. But when she asks the boon, how does she stand? And Sri Aurobindo is so direct in his words. First boon, and silently the woman's heart replied. If anyone has ever given a greater tribute to women, one doesn't know. Standing on those heights where man and woman are annulled, yet there is something in the eternal feminine. And silently the woman's heart replied, thy peace, O Lord, a boon within to keep. Amid the roar and ruin of wild time, for the magnificent soul of man on earth, thy calm, O Lord, that bears thy hands of joy. So there are 4 aspects of the higher consciousness. The first thing she wants to establish is peace and calm, because this yoga will go through the ruin and roar of wild time. As we have read, the hour of God is terrible. So first thing is she secures peace and calm for this great journey. Once again the voice tells her, bids her to ascend, unweave the stars and into the silence pass. It gives her that option again. Okay, peace is given to earth and man amidst the roar and ruin of time. Now you come and merge into this silence. Unweave the stars and into silence pass. I'm just reading in lines below. In an immense and world-destroying pause. So what she hears at that point, she's standing on the borders of the form and formlessness. And she's face to face with the Supreme. And what is she hearing? She heard a million creatures cry to her. Only the Divine Mother's grace and compassion can feel that. Through the tremendous stillness of her thoughts, immeasurably the woman's nature spoke. Thy oneness, Lord, in many approaching hearts, my sweet infinity of thy numberless souls. So she secures oneness, which is the very basis of collective yoga, so that we don't strive after individual peace and be very happy that I have very nice experiences while the struggling world is left outside. So she secures oneness. Once again the voice admonishes her and bids her to withdraw into the sleep above the dreadful whirlings of the world. And once again a sob of things was answer to the voice. This is the avatar who links heaven and earth. In her highest heights, she is face to face with the Supreme. In her deepest gulfs, she hears the sob of things on earth. A sob of things was answer to the voice, and passionately the woman's heart replied, Thy energy, Lord, to seize on woman and man, to take all things and creatures in their grief, and gather them into a mother's arms. So she secures the divine force and the divine consciousness, the divine power, thy energy for earth. She secures that third boon: peace, oneness, force. So now these 3 are secured. What else is left? Once again, the wide eye of solitude is opened, and she is bid to rise above and rest away from the sweet madness of the dance, out of whose beat the throb of hearts was born. Breaking the silence with appeal and cry, a hymn of adoration tireless climbed, a music beat of winged uniting souls. Then all the women yearningly replied. What is left is ananda, sweetness and love. When the base is ready, when peace has dwelt in man's heart, when truth and oneness are his background and support, when force of light, when consciousness and power have seized and possessed human nature, then there will come as the last crown and the justification of the great labor, ananda, love, delight. So she asks, thy embrace which rends the living knot of pain, Thy joy, O Lord, in which all creatures breathe. Thy magic flowing waters of deep love. Thy sweetness give to me for earth and men.